Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mark Dirks, and on behalf of Choice and ACRL, I'd like to welcome you to today's program, Enhancing Digital Access to Course and Library Materials, which is sponsored by ProQuest. Today's discussion is one in a series of sponsored webinars from ACRL and Choice that addresses new ideas, developments, and products of interest to the academic library community. Free to users, these structured 60-minute live presentations provide the opportunity for interactive discussions of important new issues and developments in academic librarianship by librarians, vendors, authors, and other interested stakeholders. Before we get started, I'd like to point out just a couple of features of the webinar software. First off, all of you joining us out there as attendees, please know that you are automatically muted and your cameras are disabled. So don't worry about generating noise or feedback or anything like that. It should be all taken care of for you. In the main area of the screen, as you can see, you can follow along with the presentation materials. Would also mention that we are using the Q&A feature today. If you move your mouse over your screen, you should see a little line of buttons, and that Q&A box is where we'll ask you to put your questions. So if you do have questions for any of our speakers today, please feel free to drop them in as they come to you. And at the end of the session, we'll take some time to answer as many as we have time for. If we don't get to your questions, we apologize. Our time is somewhat constrained, and so we'll do as many as we can, but please know that we often have a lot of questions and aren't always able to get to all of them. Also note that we are recording today's program, and everyone who registered should receive a follow-up email with a link to that archived version, usually first thing in the morning, the day following. So with that, we are ready to get started, and I will hand things over to Jane.
Thank you, Mark. I want to thank everybody very much for joining today. I know that we're all thinking about the new normal and whether we're there yet and whether we're ready for it. And as we think about that, what we believe as we work with all of you is that, while you are reopening and however much reopening you've actually gotten to, and I know that it varies from place to place, but in addition to staying safe, we really want to help you respond, recover, and thrive. It's been a very, very challenging time, and it has changed the way in which many of us do our work. I have to say that during this time, I've really been guided a lot by an article that I read by Christopher Cox, who is the dean at Clemson University. And he wrote an article back in June that appeared in Inside Higher Ed, and it was called Changed Utterly. And he said some things in that article that have really resonated with me about the way in which the new normal is actually going to be the next normal, that we're going to have to keep adjusting as we go along. And in particular, we know that virtual learning and hybrid classes are probably here to stay. We also know that the demand for electronic alternatives to print has actually now crossed the curve lines and is also, we believe, here to stay. And so what we want to talk about today, and we have experts with us to talk about, is, what is it going to mean to stay agile in the new normal, faced with the two underlying things that are impacting all of us. One is budget cuts, and the other one is certainly growing user expectations. So how do we provide materials to our users in the environment that happened because of the pandemic, but in a certain extent is going to continue? So, like I said, we're very, very fortunate today to have some experts to really talk with us. We have two people from California State University at San Marcos. Natalia and Kellyanne are going to talk about how they have used two solutions from Ex Libris to really help them move into the new normal, and especially around their operations for interlibrary loan, and for reserves. And both of them are accompanied by people from Ex Libris who actually help shape these services. Mike Richins, who is the Director of Product Management for RapidILL, and Jesse Ransom, who is definitely our specialist around Leganto. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mike for a couple of brief introductions about RapidILL.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Jane. And thanks everyone for joining us in this session. I'm very excited to be talking with you all. And I'm going to provide a high-level overview of RapidILL before turning it over to Natalia to talk about how they use RapidILL at the CSU San Marcos. So RapidILL has been a really interesting platform during the pandemic, and I believe it's a service that really supports the needs of libraries currently that are facing a lot of issues related to obtaining material, issues related to having access to print collections, and in general, just supporting resource sharing and the ability to provide services to their users. If I was to summarize RapidILL into one sentence, it would be that it's a solution for very fast and cost-effective document delivery that was created by resource sharing librarians to answer the unique needs of article and book chapter requests. And some of you may have already heard the story of RapidILL. I'll summarize it very briefly. In 1997, there was a flood here in Fort Collins, Colorado, that they called it a 500-year flood, and it flooded a number of areas in the city, including several buildings on the CSU campus. And at the time, the library staff had just moved the entire bound volume collection to the basement with some pretty bad results. So over 500,000 volumes of the collection were completely destroyed. So there was a real need to get material from other libraries that would normally be available in the CSU collection. So we worked with a number of close partner libraries that said they are willing to provide us with a very fast turnaround time for article requests if we helped out with student budgets, provided them with scanners, and then we also developed the technical infrastructure to support the resource sharing process to get requests to them. And so it worked really well. So well, in fact, that after a couple of years, we decided to make it a two-way street in around 2004. RapidILL opened up to libraries in North America. And since then, it has steadily grown. Now we have libraries all over the world, from Canada to the UK, Israel, Belgium, France, all the way to Singapore, Taiwan, Hong Kong, and Australia and New Zealand. And the goal with RapidILL is to really focus on making resource sharing as efficient and as automated as possible. So talking through some of the unique features of RapidILL, it was really designed around the lending workflow. So what can we do to make lending, as easy, cost-effective, and streamlined as possible? Well, one of the ways that we do that is we work with libraries to get a representation of what they have in their collections. So we know what they own. We also work with them to define what they are able to lend. So if you can't scan, for instance, from special collections archives, you could block that material. For electronic collections, you're able to note if something's lendable or not. And also if it's lendable just to other partner libraries in your own country, or lendable to the greater RapidILL community. So it's very granular and presents you with the ability to have a process around lending that you understand all the requests you get from Rapid are things that you own, are things that you can fill, and then we provide you with a very fast and efficient workflow for managing those requests. And because of that, we are able to very efficiently target lenders in the system, and that results in a very high fill rate. So the typical fill rate for a Rapid library is between 94 to 97%, a very high for a resource sharing system. The other thing that we've done with RapidILL is design it to be vendor neutral, meaning it could be integrated into a number of platforms. Currently, we have integrations with Alma, Clio, Iliad, RelayILL, and Tipasa. It could also be used as a standalone service. And with those integrations, you're able to have a very automated workflow And in fact, from a borrowing perspective, a fully automated workflow from the point of your patron placing the request to the point that it's actually delivered to them, that could be completely automated in these resource sharing platforms. Finally, one of the unique things that we do with RapidILL is we have a fairly sophisticated load leveling algorithm that both evenly distributes requests out to lenders in the system. So not any one lender is overwhelmed with requests, but it also takes into account time zone, the relative time zones of the potential lenders. So if you are a West Coast library here in the US and you place a request and it's 5 p.m., 6 p.m., the chance of another West Coast library filling that request that same day is relatively small. So the system will tend to push that request out to a library west of you. So it might go to an Australia, New Zealand library or a library in Israel or the UK. So the idea is that we're trying to both load level and also get requests to libraries that are able to fill that request sooner than later. So what that results in is that requests are filled very quickly and rapid. In fact, the average fill turnaround time usually runs between 11 and 12 hours. And surprisingly, that didn't change over the past year. So even during the pandemic, the RapidIL system and the community of users were such that they were able to support request flows and processing between each other that still allowed for a turnaround time of 11 hours. And there were a number of ways that that was managed and the ways that we worked with libraries during the pandemic. And one of those ways was to optimize their collections. So obviously a lot of libraries were unable to scan from print over the past year. And so we worked with them individually to just set those locations that were lendable that they had access to. And as libraries were able to, again, scan from the print collections, we would then enable those collections for lending. And so it really created an environment that was conducive to making sure that the libraries had sustained quick access to material through the RapidIL platform. So on that note, I am going to pass it over to Natalia to talk about their use of RapidIL at California State University, San Marcos.
Hi, my name is Natalia Magazzino, and I work in interlibrary loan and resource sharing at Cal State San Marcos. So I'll be talking a little bit about how we use RapidILL at San Marcos. So we've always processed RapidIL lending requests using the RapidILL Web Interface. Our student assistants primarily work on these requests. What is really neat about the web interface is that it can be accessed from anywhere, so these requests can be processed from anywhere. So it was really easy to transition our student assistants from processing these in the office to processing them remotely. While lending requests are processed through the web interface, all RapidILL borrowing requests are processed in Iliad by ILL staff. We make use of RapidILL routing rules in Iliad so that we don't have to touch as many requests. We have a routing rule that automatically submits article requests to Rapid after they have cleared copyright, and another routing rule that automatically submits article requests to Rapid that are more than 5 years old. We've also used RapidILL book chapters for many years. The process for these requests is pretty much identical to that of article requests. And then last summer, we participated in RapidILL's COVID-19 initiative. And then this is just a screenshot of the RapidILL web interface. You can see that article requests show up in one queue, and then the book chapter requests show down below in another queue. And here's our workflow for filling RapidIL lending requests through the web interface. From the main menu, we retrieve the request by opening up the batched request queue. We locate using the journal level links provided with each request in the queue. We then save the PDFs using the RapidILL number. And lastly, we upload to RapidX. RapidX can be accessed by navigating from the main menu of the web interface to the lending tab and then clicking on RapidX. From that page, you'll click on Send Rapid Requests and just locate and upload the file that you saved. So it's pretty simple and intuitive process. And then, as I mentioned, we did participate in RapidILL's COVID initiative last summer. The initiative allowed non-Rapid libraries to participate in RapidILL. So with the help of our student assistants filling RapidILL requests remotely, we filled 570 requests for the RapidILL COVID-19 initiative, which was in addition to the requests we filled for our other pods. So we're in various pods. If you want to know more about that, you can ask Mike. We were able to assist other libraries in obtaining materials for their users while also keeping our student assistants busy and employed. So we found the arrangement to be mutually beneficial. And then lastly, I'm going to talk a little bit about Rapid Book Chapters. Like I said, we've been using Rapid Book Chapters for many years. We love Rapid Book Chapters for the same reasons we love Rapid for Articles. Since lenders only receive requests for materials they own, the turnaround time on these requests is very fast. The ILLiad routing rules I talked about earlier also apply to book chapters, so these requests do get pushed out automatically as well. We were very grateful when the pandemic began that we were already set up with Rapid Book Chapters. For a while, we couldn't obtain physical materials, so we encouraged our users to submit chapter requests whenever possible. Instead of immediately canceling loan requests in ILLiad, we use an email routing rule to communicate to our users that we could only obtain 2 to 3 chapters from the loans they requested. When we would hear back, we would convert the requests into chapter requests. And we found that many users really only need a chapter or 2. All right.
All right, so now I will kind of switch gears a little bit here and we'll talk a bit about Leganto, which is another solution that Cal State San Marcos is using to help provide electronic access to materials for their patrons. So Kellyanne from Cal State San Marcos will be discussing how they've been using Leganto specifically on their campus, but as an introduction, I want to very briefly explain what Leganto is, because I know that there will be some people who aren't familiar with it already. So I hope to provide just enough context that what Kellyanne shares makes sense and you can start to understand, how some of this is working behind the scenes. So for those who may not be familiar with it, Leganto is a course materials solution. It makes it very easy for faculty to use library resources in the classroom. It makes it easy for students to access those resources. And also it makes it very easy for the library to understand what's being used in the classroom and help provide access to those resources. We integrate with the learning management system. So here on the slide here, you can see an example of a Leganto list, which is the Leganto piece is what's highlighted in red here inside of Moodle. We work with all of the different learning management systems, but you can see how this is a very nice integration with the actual course. So the student or the faculty they don't need to go somewhere else. They don't need to know how to search for these resources. They can just access them right inside of the learning management system. Leganto was always designed to help provide access to these resources, especially I would say electronic resources, as more and more libraries have large electronic collections, and also as more and more students are expecting electronic access to these resources. It does include all different types of course materials. This could be books, it could be articles, chapters, videos, websites. There's a pretty long list of the different types of resources that are used in Leganto lists. I think the last time I checked, it was somewhere in like the 87-ish number. So it is a very high number of the different types of materials. And I think this is also a good indication of how complex course materials can be and the variety of resources that are used in courses. We want to make sure, especially in the last year, that students will be able to access their resources online and also access it from anywhere on any device. Leganto also provides workflows that are really integrated with what the library might need to do. So on the library side, you can very clearly see what is being used in courses and then flag certain types of resources to bring them to the attention of the library staff. So this may be something like perhaps a physical item is on a reading list and you want to digitize a section of it or see if you can get an electronic copy of a book, for example. So you can flag these things and also use this to begin some of the library workflows for helping to provide access to these resources. Leganto also includes advanced analytics. This includes analytics for the faculty. They can see how students are engaging with each of the resources on their list, but also very comprehensive analytics for the library. So the library can really understand, again, what's being used in the courses and also how the library collection supports course materials. Which resources are being used, how much usage are they getting, which resources are being used that the library doesn't provide access to. You can see all of that information. So as I said, Leganto was really always designed to kind of meet some of the many needs that institutions had with COVID and the shift to online learning. So there weren't really any big shifts that need to happen to help provide access to electronic resources for courses. But also, these could be online courses or on-campus courses. From Leganto's perspective, Leganto now has a perspective. From the perspective of Leganto, it really doesn't matter. So, thinking about this from the student side, the goal is that students can access all of their course materials, that they have an integrated experience across all of their courses. There's a consistent way that students expect to encounter their course materials, as opposed to what happens on many campuses where it's really up to the professor. Some resources are loaded into the learning management system. In some cases, they're told to search the library. In some places, they just get a syllabus and they're supposed to go track things down on their own. We want to make sure that students kind of get a leg up there and know what to expect. And also, Leganto can really help with the gigantic challenge of broken links, because it can help by integrating directly with the library link resolver to provide access to the materials that the library has. From the faculty side, it makes it easy to share these course materials directly with students in the course, as you saw on that first slide through the learning management system. They can add any course materials to a resource list, and as they add resources to Leganto, it will automatically check against the library collection. So if the library does have access to something, then that library inventory is added automatically. If not, again, this would be an example of where this could potentially be flagged for library review. And of course, we want to make the faculty workload easier every chance we get. So there's a very streamlined process for rolling over reading lists from one term to another. And then finally, the third perspective that we look at here is the library side. On the library side, because we have this integration directly with the link resolver, we can ensure that the links are linking to the library collection accurately, flagging resources that are maybe physical items from the library collection, and helping to identify alternatives. Alternatives could be things like resources that are available also electronically, maybe resources that were available as part of many of the publishers opening up their collections during the pandemic through HathiTrust, different options like this. And as I said before, integrated workflows on the library side to help provide access to these resources. Finally, I want to mention that in addition to helping with the workflows around managing these course materials, providing access to these resources, Leganto can also be used to help encourage active learning. So for example, students can mark resources that they've read, resources that they like. They can suggest additional resources for the course. They can also add annotations to course materials. So that's the screenshot that you're looking at here. Students can actually work within the resources itself and add their comments or highlighting to the course materials. Over the next several months, we'll be expanding on this pretty significantly so that faculty will be able to assign readings to students, and then the students will annotate them, and faculty will be able to use these annotations or comments to understand and also measure student engagement and measure their understanding of the course materials. So I think this is especially critical, in online courses where there is less of that face-to-face interaction. It's not as easy to understand, what students are doing, what are they engaging with, what are they really connecting with. So we want to help with both sides of those things, the sort of management aspect, as well as that student engagement piece. So with that, hopefully that was enough of an introduction into what Leganto is. I'm very pleased to introduce Kellyanne Sam, who will talk more specifically about what Cal State San Marcos is doing here.
Thank you, Jessie, for giving that overview of Leganto, so everything I say is not confusing. So I am the reserves coordinator at CSU San Marcos. We've had Leganto since fall 2018 was when we did our full implementation and open it to all faculty to use. And the way that we've used Leganto on our campus is it basically replaced our course reserves. So for our course reserves, we do media, print, and electronic. So Leganto was just the perfect product for us to be able to put everything into one place for students, like Jessie said, because before they had to go to like 3 different places to find all of their course materials. And it's a little frustrating for students. So luckily with Leganto, we're able to put everything in one place. We can make different sections for them, so it's not just one list of a million items. So in my slides, I'll just be going over some ways that we've been using Leganto and especially how it's helped during COVID. So this first slide is how we use Leganto in our electronic materials. This little word bubble we have is just different databases and vendors that we've been using this past year. We've increased our purchase of ebooks. So 2 things that we've gotten was Bibliu and Overdrive, which we didn't have pre-COVID, but it's definitely helped us expand our access to some of those ebooks that we couldn't get through our usual vendors. We've also increased our purchase of streamed media due to faculty not being able to show movies in class anymore. And in addition to this is that we've increased our linking to outside resources. A major thing I've been doing a lot this past year is helping faculty find other resources to stuff that we can't actually buy. So things like YouTube links. Hoopla is actually something that some of the public libraries around us use. So we've kind of been pushing some of our students to go get a public library card and access their movies or ebooks through there as well. And then this next slide is about Leganto and our physical materials. Obviously with COVID, our print materials are not being circulated right now since the library is not open. But we've been able to still add physical materials into Leganto, especially with the feature of the digitization request. So faculty have been able to keep the physical items they have from when we were open or add physical items from our collection, and then they can submit a digitization request directly through Leganto that we receive. For COVID, we've been uploading like the first 1 or 2 chapters, whatever falls in fair use, just to give students time to get their own affordable copy, since so many of our students did depend on our print copies before we had to shut down. Another thing that we have is now our students can actually request the physical item in Leganto. So as you can see in this screenshot, when they click on a book that's in their reading list, it'll show the requesting option. So our pickup at library lockers, those are our library lockers that we got. So that's for items that we do have in our collection. And then there's also the mail to home delivery, which will just route it to an ILL request, which then Natalia forwards, and we'll get them a print copy from elsewhere. And then another huge feature is the public notes in Leganto. So faculty can include notes for all citations in Leganto. And we've been using these as information of the links that we provide to outside sources, or sometimes our ebooks have limited user licenses. So if it's 3 user license, we just note in the public note that this is a 3 user license. Please check back later to see if a copy is available and things like that. And then this is our purchase request workflow. So with getting Leganto, our collection policy actually changed, and we decided to start purchasing course materials. This has been ramped up to the max since COVID, but beforehand, we were already doing it, which is really great because Since we are part of a consortium, our Leganto search is open to include all CSU holdings, which means that there are a lot of materials in those searches that we don't actually own yet. And it's been a bit of a learning curve to get faculty to understand what the availability means within Leganto. But just kind of to curb the frustration, we decided to change our collection policy and just buy anything they put in there that we don't own yet. So what faculty will do is they can add an item from Leganto into their reading list, and then there are tags that they have in Leganto. So we use the tags to indicate purchase requests, and then also the loan limit that they want for the print material. So we have 2 hours to ranging to 3 weeks. So they can choose what they want the book to be loaned out for. Other ways that we also do purchase request workflow is our faculty can just email us and we'll start it for them. But it's great that they can search in Leganto, find what they need, and then put it in there. And then we already have all the book information. After we receive the request, we will then submit it to our acquisitions department, and we use Jira as our ticketing system to keep track of the status of the purchase request. And then after it is purchased, we are notified by acquisitions. Sorry, I totally skipped a step. When we purchase a book, we will always purchase the most permissive option. So of course, if there's an unlimited user ebook, we get that first. If not, we will get the limited license. And depending on how large the class is, we may purchase multiple licenses. And if all else fails, we will get the print book. There are some restrictions on print books. Basically anything published by textbook publishers like Pearson, McGraw-Hill, we won't buy just because they're first of all really expensive, and also the faculty just change those editions change so frequently that we don't buy those. And so then after an item is purchased, we are notified when it's available in Primo, and then it's added into Leganto, and I notify faculty that it's available. And then our future Leganto and reserves plans. So the first thing I want to do is set up a digitization workflow in Leganto for students. Right now we have it set up for faculty, and with the plans of reopening in the fall, probably with limited services still and limited hours, even if we will be circulating our print reserves, we still want to set up a digitization option for students who may not be local and just need one chapter here and there, or just can't make it to campus to get the book. So we're hoping to set that up for fall. Another thing that Leganto has is a questions pop-up that we had tried to implement pre-COVID. And then once COVID hit, it was just like, okay, we're going to put a pause on this. But as you can see in the screenshot, basically, Leganto will be able to identify when faculty add an item that's not owned by the library, and it will have this pop-up and basically ask them what they would like us to do. So, we can purchase an ebook. Some of our faculty do prefer a print book versus an ebook. That may change now, but before COVID, they did prefer a print one. And so there's options, and then luckily, once they submit this questionnaire, it'll automate the purchase request tag into the citation so that our staff know what to do with that citation. And then, like Jesse had showed, the new thing for annotating PDFs is something that I would really like to implement for Leganto. This past year, our campus had gotten Perusal, which I don't know if you're not familiar with it. It's basically a annotation of PDFs that they have that was integrated into our LMS. So it kind of did hurt Leganto a little bit with getting faculty on board, since they did really like the possibility of annotating the PDF with the whole class. So when I saw this on the new release, I was pretty excited about it. So hopefully we will be able to get that up and running for fall and get more faculty back on board with Leganto. And then this is a slide of how ILL and reserves have been working together this past year.
So as you can imagine, there is a lot of overlap with the titles that get requested through ILL and the titles that are required for courses. So we do have a workflow in ILLiad for forwarding ILL requests to acquisitions for purchase. And then sometimes users will indicate in the notes field of the ILL request that the request is for a class. So we use the same workflow that Kellyanne does, which is we route these requests to acquisitions for purchase using Jira. And then also, I'm just always in close contact with Kellyanne because I notice processing the request that we'll get a lot of requests for the same title. So I'll reach out if I don't see it in Leganto already, I'll reach out and let her know. And she's usually able to find out if it's for a course. Sometimes the faculty didn't let her know. And so she'll put it in Leganto. And so it's a really neat workflow.
Yes, and then so after it's routed to acquisitions using Jira, acquisitions will notify me whenever an ebook that is being purchased for a course is available. And then they also, if it's not, they also notify the user who requested through ILL. And then I will add into Leganto, and then I reach out to faculty and let them know. And then, like Natalia had said, that whenever she receives multiple requests, sometimes I can find which book it's for. I work closely with the bookstore to get the book list. And so I'll figure out which course it's for. And some pretty great things that we've been able to figure out this past year is that sometimes faculty are assigning anthologies with only using 3 readings from them. So her receiving a lot of multiple requests, I've been able to look into some of these and actually find the readings that they're using in our databases and put those into Leganto instead, and reducing the cost of the course for students. Mm-hmm. And then this next slide is just some screenshots of Jira. So as you can see, this is the ILL purchase request. It has the form fields with the information for the title and all that. And then you can see our comments that we're able to put on there. So we'll comment sometimes like what type of licenses are available for us. So this one, there was only an overdrive 1 copy, 1 user license. And then I also commented like, hey, this is actually being used for a course. Like, please let me know when this is available. But yes, that's how we have been able to work pretty closely together this past year to increase the amount of resources we've been able to make available for students.
So really, Natalia and Kellyanne, thank you so very, very much. You know, it just makes such a huge difference to have you describe actually how this really works in real life, you know, to sort of talk through your workflows and really kind of share it with our audience and with us. We're very, very grateful because, you know, as I said at the beginning, this is all about respond, recover, and thrive as we work in a system where the library takes on these roles, where we can utilize our collections in new ways, and where we're really trying to, you know, transform to pretty much everything E, which I think the pandemic has certainly escalated. So we want to thank our audience for joining today, and what we're going to do now is work our way through the questions, right?
Yes, thank you very much, Jane. We do have quite a few questions, and as you've seen, we've seen a lot of questions already come in, and they've been answered, and you should see some of those answers in those in the post. Some questions that have come up is, the first question is, can students submit a RapidILL request within the LMS using the Leganto integration?
I guess one of the things about having so many speakers is knowing who should answer them. So I guess I'll start, but anyone else should feel free to chime in. Yes, they can, assuming that you have this set up. And actually, Kellyanne talked, not specifically about Rapid, but she had the example of being able to request an item to be delivered to your home. So you could have a similar integration there for course materials where students would be able to place a request.
Okay, the next question, this is a Leganto question. Is the information Leganto provides identifiable and granular, i.e. the professor can see student A opened a specific file, or is it general and anonymized, i.e. a professor can see a file was opened 37 times by a total of 22 students?
The short answer is both. Out of the box, Leganto anonymizes student information, so the professor can see how many unique students clicked through to a resource, but not which ones. It is possible to enable the full usage information, in which case they would be able to see which students engaged with which resources. This is something that's set at the institutional level, so you would decide how you wanted it to work.
Okay, another question that came in. When users ask for physical books to be digitized, who is in charge of cleaning and then digitizing the needed chapters?
I can answer this one. For our campus, our reserve staff are the ones who we OER them. And this past year, we've been, why am I blanking on what is the term? We make them accessible. So it's on our reserve staff who've been doing it.
Okay.
And sometimes we just send them through RapidILL if we're not in the office. Even if we own it, we'll just submit it through RapidILL because they're so quick.
Okay, another question that came in is, how do you achieve a high participation of teachers to upload their reading list in Leganto?
So the way that we did it was, since we used it to replace our course reserves, we kind of forced faculty to use it. We were kind of like, this is the new thing. I did create a step-by-step manual. We held a lot of trainings. I still offer one-on-one training with faculty, but it's still very much a library managed type of thing. And like I said, I work with the bookstore, so I get the book list, and we will automatically place anything that's from the collection onto a Leganto list and let the faculty know. And the link is in their LMS, and we just let them know, like, hey, this is here for you. Send them a link to our page of how to manage it and about Leganto, and hopefully they use it more.
I'll just add, as part of the Leganto subscription, from the Ex Libris side, you would work with what we call our campus engagement program, which is really designed to help with faculty adoption and faculty outreach, helping with things like how to promote Leganto in language that makes sense to faculty, how to speak to the benefits that it brings to them, what is the value that that it brings to students, for example, kind of putting things in the right language. So they work with, the campus engagement team works with all of our customers to help figure out the right way to roll it out on your campus and do that faculty outreach.
Okay, this is an appropriate follow-up question. Natalia and Kelly, do you know what is the percentage of your professors approximately that are using Leganto?
I don't know our total number of professors, but the number of courses we support pre-COVID was around 800 a semester, and like 300 faculty teaching those 800 courses.
Okay. Next question is, do electronic resources in Leganto have to be managed in two places, such as both Leganto and Alma electronic resources, or does management in Alma e-resources flow to Leganto? For example, link changes, holding changes, notes about concurrent user limits, etc.
So technically speaking, it's all one system. Leganto is an application that sits directly on top of the Alma platform. So when faculty add resources to a Leganto list, they are also adding it to the course reserve section of Alma. So it really is only managing it once in either Leganto or Alma. It's the same data.
And I can add to that the citations from the Leganto search, it mirrors what shows in our Primo. So it has the same links and the same like notes on the citation.
Okay, another question is, are your ILL requests mediated or unmediated? I imagine mediated will assist in catching titles that can be purchased for use in Leganto.
Right, so all of our article and book chapter requests are unmediated, so we rarely touch those unless they're complicated requests. But for the last year, we have been mediating all loan requests because we've been trying to purchase as much as we can as ebooks. So we do forward a lot of loan requests to acquisitions to purchase as ebooks. So I don't know how long we'll continue with that workflow, but it's not too labor intensive since the article and book chapters are totally unmediated.
Okay, another question, and for those people that are watching the recording, we did answer a lot of questions in real time about RapidILL. So I'll try to get to some of those questions that were previously answered in the chat. But we do have a lot of questions still. Next question is, what were some of the barriers, holdups in implementing RapidILL Leganto with the existing library systems?
I would say for Leganto, it was more so, it was just such a new product for us. It integrated really well into Alma and our workflow because we used it to replace course reserves. The biggest thing was just the learning curve of getting faculty on board to actually use it.
And for RapidILL, we actually had that implemented before I even started in the resource sharing department. But I believe it's pretty simple. You would just give your holdings to RapidILL, but Mike might be able to speak more on that.
Yeah, sure. I'll share some information. I think the implementation process, is pretty straightforward for RapidILL. It could generally be set up in your local environment within a few days. Part of the process is supplying holdings files from your ILS, which can either be an OAI harvest, which is automatically updates your holdings if you're using Alma on a monthly basis, or you're required to provide holdings via an upload form if you export it from a different ILS. I think one of the other barriers that we've kind of run into, libraries interested in RapidILL, is that there is a service commitment to participate. So libraries do agree to field requests within 24 hours, Monday through Friday. And I think that could be a little scary for some libraries, but the system does do a lot to ensure that you're able to make that turnaround time commitment. So as I mentioned earlier in the overview, you only fill from collections that you want to fill from, and you're able to limit your lending to electronic titles you're licensed to lend from. So you're only getting requests for material that you can process. You're not having to spend a lot of time canceling requests. And the other thing that you could do is shut your lending off completely. Similar to other resource sharing systems, you're able to shut off lending whenever you need to. And finally, the system works a little bit differently than other resource sharing systems in the sense that we do have the load leveling, so libraries can generally get about as many lending requests as they are putting in as a borrower. But if you are running into temporary issues with maybe staffing or other things that are going on that are going to limit your ability to fill rapid requests during a particular period of time, you're always welcome to reach out to the Rapid team, and we could actually temporarily reduce your lending volume for a particular period of time. This was actually a really key part of keeping libraries, active, participating, and successfully getting material filled through Rapid over the course of the past year, is that we did work with some libraries to reduce their lending volume temporarily. We also worked with libraries that, because they were working remote and all of a sudden they couldn't work on other projects, we actually, for some libraries, increased their lending during a particular period of time so that they were able to get more requests and were net lenders for a particular length of time. So there are ways the system can help assist libraries to meet that turnaround time commitment, and that is the most important thing with Rapid, is that we're able to support libraries and present them with a manageable number of requests they're able to get filled quickly.
Okay, the next question is that we have, and thank you very much for answering so many questions and asking for so many questions. The next question is regarding reserves. What is the ratio for students to digital copy?
So when we can get an unlimited user ebook, generally, if we can get a 3 license for classes of 40 students, that's sufficient. Because for our print books, we have 1 print book for 40 students, and it's been pretty good. With our limited user licenses, we don't allow the book to be downloaded or checked out for a period of time. So students are only able to access it during that session. So if they're reading it for an hour and then they're done with it and exit the ebook, another student can access it immediately.
Okay, we have 2 questions that are somewhat related, so I'll combine them both. How do you communicate with faculty about using Leganto versus uploading files into their Canvas/Blackboard, et cetera? And what type of instruction to faculty is involved in doing this?
Yeah, so when we first implemented Leganto, I have a manual that I have posted on our reserves webpage. I send them the link to that page. I offer one-on-one training, and then the thing that we used a lot to promote Leganto was that the no broken links, because sometimes, they do link out to library resources and it's not the right permalink, or one great thing we've had with Leganto is because it's in a reading list, we will know to keep that license or subscription when it is up for when the subscription is up. So that's kind of what we just promote to them, like saying, you know, it's better to have it in this reading list. We can keep track of it. Students won't have any issues accessing it. And then we do remind them that it's better within copyright. All of our reading lists are restricted to students only in that course. So yeah.
Okay, another question is there a workflow that handles multiple use licensing for articles, book chapters, or streaming videos if needed for Leganto?
If that's in regards to purchasing, there is. Jesse can talk more about that.
That was a good prompt. So there is an integration with the purchasing workflow. So, you know, should you decide that you need to purchase additional licenses, for example, there's a very streamlined workflow to do that. I'll also say there's a job that you can run with Leganto that can help you identify citations where you do have concurrent user licenses. It displays the details of how many concurrent user licenses you have. So that can help identify those, but also because there's the integration, you know, with Alma and Primo, as we previously discussed, that information also displays to students and instructors so they can see, you know, how many licenses there are and understand, you know, maybe what's going on with this course.
Okay, another question is what software is used to ILL a physical copy of a book not scanned?
So yeah, we use Iliad for both returnables and non-returnables. RapidILL fully integrates in with Iliad, so we can use it for both.
Okay, another question is what kind of analytics do you get with Leganto and how have you used them on your campus?
The analytics that we use for Leganto, so with Leganto, we do now have our course information uploaded from PeopleSoft. So we get the number of students in the course. And with that, we've been able to identify how many unique students are accessing these materials. And affordable learning is a really big thing on our campus. So we will actually calculate the potential savings if every student in this course used this material, and also the, well, we say actual cost savings, but of the unique students who have actually used these materials. So that's how we've been using Leganto analytics.
Okay, Kellyanne, there's a question about your comment about home delivery. Is it sending local collection to the user or actual ILL? Who assumes the cost of returns? How often has this occurred? I'm curious how closures in California affected library access.
Yeah, so the home delivery button, it just routes to our ILL request form, and then Natali takes it from there.
Yeah, so we do everything. ILL, we have our consortial CSU resource sharing program, and we also do ILL. So it's and we have it route to the ILL form just because we've been mailing stuff forever. We're familiar with it. We have all the supplies down in the ILL department. So it just submits an ILL request. We get that in Iliad. We collect their address information at the point of request, and we mail it off to them. And as far as cost, I think we did get some CARES money to pay for that. So that's been good.
Okay, another question is, has there been any savings in staff time and labor? It sounds like course reserves were just transformed into another workflow, not eliminated.
I would say we did kind of just transform it. We didn't really eliminate the library aspect of reserves. We have gone down from 3 staff working in reserves to 2, but we are our own subunit. It really depends on how campuses want to use Leganto. I know other CSUs have used it more hands-off library-wise and just let faculty create a reading list for them. We just chose to use it as a course reserves replacement for our library, but it's totally, there's a multitude of ways that campuses can use Leganto and how much they want to be involved in it.
Okay, another question is, for Leganto, do you solicit regular feedback from both faculty and students on aspects, for example, ease of use, etc.?
We don't anymore. When we first implemented it, we did get a lot of feedback. But now that we've had it for a few years, we don't really solicit any more feedback.
Okay, we're nearing the end of the hour. We do have a couple more questions, so thank you very much, everybody, for your patience, as well as all those people that are answering the questions. Is there a way for you to track that the same student doesn't request more than one chapter to be scanned from the same print book over semester?
So we haven't set up the digitization yet, and that was one question I did have. I believe the answer right now might be no, but I might be wrong, so Jesse can correct me. I did see it in the enhancements list for Leganto, but I know other campuses that are doing digitization have been doing like a manual tracking.
And for resource sharing, you could set up a routing rule in ILLiad that would detect that and send those to a queue. So that is possible.
Okay, this is a question that was previously submitted, and the answer was responded to in the chat, but I'll repeat it. How does RapidILL deal with copyright restrictions on articles and book chapters? For example, what happens if a patron requests more than what is permissible by copyright law?
So that would all be handled within your resource sharing system in ILLiad. So they do have ability to track that there. And then, you know, if a lender receives multiple chapters from the same book, they can go ahead and cancel it. And I've experienced that before, where a patron would submit 3 or 4 chapter requests and the lender says, you know, fills one and then cancels the rest.
Okay, another question is, did you keep the Leganto name or did you label it something else?
We actually, since we used it to replace our course reserves, we rebranded to library reserves because Leganto wasn't very intuitive to our users, and we wanted to keep it still related to the library. Yeah, so we use library reserves, and we didn't do reading because it includes more than just reading.
I'll just add that we always recommend that an institution rebrand it because there is basically zero name recognition among faculty and students. So we want to make sure that whatever the link is called in the LMS, it's something that will make sense to the student and to the faculty.
Okay, a couple of items. First of all, I did post a couple of links if you want to learn more about Leganto and RapidILL. There are a couple of links in the chat that you can access. If you want a personal demo of RapidILL or Leganto, there's an email address on the screen that you can send an email to, and we will fulfill that request. If you have any other questions that you haven't thought of, you can email all of our presenters today. Their email addresses are on the screen, as you can see. And the last question that I'll ask today is, can you speak to rapid chapter lending? And I'll open that up to either Natalia or Mike to answer that last question.
Yeah, I talked about it a little. It's super simple. Chapter lending, like I said, we do it in the web interface. It gives you a link to the ebook. We find the chapter, we save it, and then we upload it to RapidX.
Okay, perfect. Well, I want to say thank you everybody for joining us today during the session and learning more about RapidILL and Leganto and their use specifically at Cal State San Marcos. I'd like to thank all of our presenters today, Jane, Natalia, Kellyanne, Jesse, and Mike. Everybody's asked a lot of questions and we've provided a lot of answers. So if you do want to learn more, reach out to any of our presenters or contact us here at Ex Libris and/or ProQuest. There are more ACRL choice webinars coming up. I believe the next one is on May 6th. We encourage you to attend as many ACRL choice webinars as you can. So thank you very much, everybody, for attending. And thank you to all of our presenters for taking the time to present information about RapidILL and Leganto, as well as answer a lot of questions. So thank you very much.